The first shot out of your gun is always the most important. Not only is it the most accurate, of course, but it also sets the pace for the gunfights that will take place after it, determining whether you're about to land a sick 4K or get traded immediately after your first kill. Now, oftentimes if you don't land your first shot, the time that it's going to take you to finish off the target is going to be enough to not only lose you kills, but lose you rounds. And if you're really looking to become a clutch god, it's incredibly important that you're as accurate as you can be. Otherwise, you're going to be facing an uphill battle. But don't worry though, we're going to make it simple for you in today's guide to make sure that more often than not, you're taking advantage of that first shot accuracy to win your team rounds. And to do that, we need to cover everything you have to know about aim, movement, and everything else in between to get your first shot hitting every time. And for everything else that you need to climb ranks and improve fast, there's SkillCapped.com. We take the highest priority skills to climb ranks fast, such as things like aiming, and then we break it down into a step-by-step course that's really easy to understand. You're not only going to learn the basics, such as crosshair placement and clearing angles properly, but you're also going to learn advanced concepts like getting more multi-kills and repositioning. That's honestly not everything though, as every week we release 6 brand new VOD reviews where Radiant coaches teach you how to climb out of the exact rank that you're stuck in. And if you're looking for something a little bit more personal instead, then we've got you covered there too, with our new one-on-one coaching at our SkillCapped Discord. Now all this seems too good to be true, right? Well, don't worry, because we're backed up by a rank up guarantee. If you don't significantly improve while actively using SkillCapped, then you get your money back and there's no questions asked. So what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description below and get the rank that you've always wanted. All right, let's get into today's guide. Landing your first shot in Valorant is vital to winning your gunfights. The importance of it lies in the fact that you control the gunfight after landing that first shot. The reason you control that gunfight is because after landing the first shot, the enemy's movement is slowed down by 72.5%. This gives you a massive advantage to either spray down the enemy if it's close range or use movement to your advantage in the gunfight. You'll notice that any pro player that lands their first bullet will immediately use some type of movement to their advantage afterwards, whether it's crouching, strafing, or jumping. Now, to land your first shot, you need to understand the basic concepts of aiming. We'll only be touching on these briefly since we have plenty of other videos talking about aiming. The term you hear most when talking about aiming, though, is crosshair placement. And the goal of crosshair placement is to have your crosshair at head level where the enemy is going to be. Sounds like an easy concept, right? Well, it is, but there is some more layers we add to it, like burst strafing when you should spray, and how to use movement properly after taking your first shot. And another basic concept of aiming in Valorant is understanding what a hitbox is. All a hitbox means is the entire portion of an enemy where a shot will be registered as a hit. However, Sage, for example, has a ponytail on her head, which may seem like it can be a hit, but it actually isn't part of her hitbox. Most agents' hitboxes are in line with the in-game outlines you can see on all agents. Sage is just a slight exception with her ponytail. And speaking about enemy outlines, I use mine on yellow since it's the easiest color for the human eye to see. So I'd recommend using yellow, but it can all be personal preference as well. Next, we'll be talking about movement. Movement really can be the difference between a gold and a diamond player in Valorant. Someone can have the best aim in the world, but if their movement's poor, they're never going to make it out of low elo. So by using movement in tandem with your aim is the best way to ensure you have the advantage in every gunfight after hitting your first bullet. Let's start off with some basics about movement. The basic movement technique everyone uses when in a gunfight is strafing. To strafe, all you do is move either a couple steps to the right or to the left. And most people will combine strafing with bursting, as burst strafing is probably the most powerful shooting technique in Valorant. Now, after your first bullet, you should immediately be burst strafing or spray. Now, I'd recommend spraying if you land your first bullet and you're close enough to justify it, but if you're at mid-range, you should always burst strafe. To burst strafe, strafe to the left or right, then shoot 3 to 4 bullets out of your gun at them, while preferably keeping your crosshair at about head level. The trick to burst strafing is simply remaining calm and not panicking. Just stick to what you know and how you learned it. Panic spraying is the bane of everybody's existence. Now, when you practice burst strafing or any other shooting technique, you should turn on the movement error graph in your settings. To turn on the movement error graph in-game, press your escape key, then at the top, press video, and then right below video, press stats, and scroll all the way to the very bottom where you'll see shooting error. Go ahead and press graph only on it, and you'll have the shooting error graph on the right side of your screen now. The shooting error graph will show a blue line whenever your shots are inaccurate. Or could be you want to minimize the amount of blue lines you get on the graph when you practice and try to translate that to in-game. It's also especially useful for knowing if you missed your first bullet or you were inaccurate when you shot. Now notice how when I'm strafing, I'm shooting properly. The lines on the graph are orange. This is what you want to achieve at all times when shooting. And when you're shooting inaccurately, the lines show up as blue. Once you eliminate all the blue from the graph, you'll be the best strafe shooter in the world. My favorite warm-up routine for practicing strafing and bursting is going into the range and moving around to different angles and heights while burst strafing, kind of like you just saw. And then I'll go into a deathmatch and make sure I'm only committing to fights after tagging an enemy, then continuing to burst and strafe throughout the rest of the engagement. Just repeat that for the whole deathmatch. Now, it might be a little bit hard to get into the habit of that, but I believe in you. Now, you might be wondering, how does this all correlate to landing your first shot and being accurate with it? Well, knowing how to shoot accurately while you're on the move can be crucial in a lot of situations in Valorant. So learning to strafe properly can help you land the first shot a lot of times. And then knowing what to do after you land the first shot is important as well. Normally, you either want to go into a full spray if they aren't killed immediately and are very close to you, but I almost always just keep my aim calm and burst at the enemy, since you have a lot more control over it that way. Another classic shooting technique I'd like to highlight that dates all the way back to CSGO is the see, stop, and shoot method. Basically, when you see an enemy, you should stop, gather yourself, then shoot when you're comfortable. Doing this will build good aiming and movement habits that benefit accuracy. And a fun way to practice strafing in the see, stop, and shoot method is by doing what Nothing, a notable ex-Counter-Strike professional, talks about in this video here.
It's a fun draw. I don't do it often. But right when someone sees you, you don't shoot for the first half second. See if you can win the fight. So see him dance, gotta make him miss. You practice your evasiveness. See him, don't shoot, then fight. See how it feels to like look at someone and not be in a sense of urgency. See that? It's so illuminating sometimes against riflers, especially watch this guy. See how long, sometimes you don't realize how long it takes someone to kill you when you're so stressed about getting killed, right?
Now, even though he was doing this in Counter-Strike, it's still very applicable to Valorant since the games are pretty similar as far as core mechanics go. But doing this will kind of train your strafing and your see, stop, and shoot method internally. It's like killing two birds with one stone. Now that we've talked about movement, aiming, and a couple ways to take advantage of your first bullet landing, we should refer to some routines you can do to get better at some of the concepts that we've just talked about. One of my favorite warm-up routines that improves first shot accuracy starts by going into the range until I feel comfortable. Simply use burst strafing or tapping against the bots until your aim feels on point. After that, I'll set the bots to strafe and put my crosshair by a bot and practice shooting it when it runs into my crosshair. This is really good for understanding your reaction time and always landing your first bullet, as it sort of imitates holding an angle. Then I'll usually go into a deathmatch and practice by holding angles, and then once I'm in a fight, I practice my burst strafing. You can also do what Nothing recommended as well. That's a really strong warm-up routine, and doing this over time will really help you see progress in your gameplay. But if you're wondering whether or not aim training is even worth it, then I'm here to say this right here. If you took just 30 minutes out of every day to warm up and aim train, after a month, you would definitely be in a higher rank than you are currently. It does take a lot of practice to get really good at aim training, so I wouldn't get discouraged about it at first if you don't aim like tens. Just try your best to improve, and I promise you will see progress in yourself. Now, we'll be looking at a couple rounds from professional player Tins, who plays for Sentinels, but likely needs no introduction himself.
Wait, drop that. One grabbing the orbit, man. That's not even a drop. Maybe it could be.
I'm holding.
Wait,
it.
wasn't he grabbing our big man?
It might have been the fade.
In the first round I chose to highlight here, notice how Tins has the shooting error graph on. Be sure to keep an eye on that. Now, watch Tins' crosshair placement as he opens the sand door. He's using the audio cues of the enemy team to accurately pre-aim the breach, and through excellent crosshair placement, his first bullet hits Breach's head. Also, as you'll see in this clip, anytime Tins' first bullet lands and hits the enemy's head with the Phantom, he'll immediately go into a crouch spray. And he does this since he just needs to land one more shot to kill them afterwards. It's also a big adjustment for the enemies if they see him standing, then need to adjust to him being crouched immediately after. It's a strong movement decision. Now, when he fights the enemy fade, he starts burst strafing like we talked about. Since it's a mid-range fight, burst strafing becomes really powerful. But the most important thing to note here is his shooting graph. His shots weren't perfect at first, but he easily recovered and won the fight through good movement. And finally, against Chamber, he lands his first bullet to the head of Chamber, and again goes into a crouch spray with the Phantom. All these techniques Tins is using in this clip, you can take away into your own game and replicate for yourself. The next clip I chose to highlight is pretty short, but I do believe it demonstrates everything we've talked about up to this point pretty well. Watch how Tins is holding for the arcade push. His crosshair is at head level, and he's strafing left and right, ready for a fight at any moment. So before he even gets into a fight, he has a massive advantage on anyone who pushes arcade because of his crosshair placement and movement already. Now, obviously, he kills the enemy Jet with ease, since he was doing everything right. Then, after Jet, he immediately turns around to find Fade pushing out of Dish. Watch how Tins controls his burst strafes, and you only see one line of blue on the shooting graph. Well done, Tins. After seeing what we talked about in action, we're sure you can take it all into your own gameplay and become just as smooth and calm as Tins was in these clips, but we can all agree that you do need some practice first. We aren't quite finished yet though. Let's talk about confidence and why it's important. In those clips that we just watched, Tins swung every angle confidently. If he were to swing them without confidence, he likely would have died in both of these rounds. Since he swung so confidently, it allowed him to take his first shot in a lot of those engagements. And as you saw, every gunfight he got the first shot off in was super easy for him. Now, some ways I stay calm, focused, and confident while I'm playing are by keeping a positive mindset, trying to keep healthy communication with teammates while we're playing, and focusing on self-improvement. Now, I know at times it can be hard to stay positive, but in a game like Valorant, the second you give off negative energy, you feed it off to your teammates as well, and honestly, that just becomes a spell for disaster. Next, keeping healthy communication with your team, it's crucial. Even if you want to be toxic, you never should be, as it just ruins the game for you and the people around you. If you ever feel tilted, you should just take a quick water break, recoup, and get back to it. And self-improvement, that should be your main goal above all else. Just try to focus on what will improve you as a player and keep working on it. I believe in you. In today's guide, we covered how to land your first shot effectively, what to do after you land that first shot, and how to implement everything we talked about into your own game. This is a lot of information, but we promise that you'll be able to improve drastically as a player and land that first shot a lot more now. So get to practicing. And this was just a glimpse of what we have to offer though. Over at SkillCapped, we've got you covered with dozens of tailor-made courses that will teach you everything you need to know about climbing in Valorant. We'll teach you everything about mastering your mechanics so that you can start playing at an immortal level in no time. And along with this, we've also uploaded tons of VOD reviews each week that our coaches record from looking at players that are just like you. So rather than paying for one $200 coaching session on any of the other platforms, you can get access to hundreds of sessions for just a few bucks. Not only that, but our coaches are also at the ready in our Discord to take a look at your gameplay and tell you exactly what your issues are, if by chance you don't find value from all the other things that we offer on our website. Use the link below for a discount link on your purchase today, and other than that, we here at SkillCapped want to thank you all for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.